Hey guys, I thought I would do a video on all my maps that I've been doing because a surprising amount of people liked them and I thought that was hunky-dory, and we got a new ring light which makes making videos super duper easy. So
Woo! Relax.
yeah, so this is the land thing that I've been working on. It's for a D&D game, and I have barely ever played D&D before, let alone GM'd it. So that's all going to be a whole little interesting ball game in of itself. Still trying to learn all of the rules, of which there are many, and I'm a slow learner, so that's a time. So I'm basing the idea behind everything is to sort of base it on my hometown of Goulburn, which for anyone that doesn't know what Goulburn is, you should definitely Google it because it's an interesting little place. It's got an inland lighthouse, which is a war memorial, and it's got a like 50-foot tall concrete sheep. I can't remember how tall it actually is, but it's like if you look at it, you're gonna say, fuck man, like that is a big sheep. And it's all made of some kind of cement, regardless of whether you look at it from the front or the back. It's truly a sight to behold, so go Google that. You'll thank me later. So Goulburn has a little suburb called Crestwood, which I lived in for a while, and it was a magical place. It was a magical place. So I want to base a whole bunch of this D&D campaign on kind of like fond memories of Crestwood, but then, you know, just thrown into a fucking high fantasy setting. So there's magic, and people can do whatever they want, and it will be fantastic. Well, I probably should have planned out how I was going to talk about this, but oh well, we'll wing it. So on here you can see I've coloured in some little areas to indicate different people that are there. So these green guys are the Christian Guard, or I'm not sure if I'm going to change that name. Might do down the track. Nothing's really set in stone too much just yet. But the idea is it's a whole island landmass. It's not too large. And it was founded by some kind of empirical, I don't know if that's the right word in that context, but like some kind of empire that's just moseyed on down and be like, this is my land, this is my land, this is my land. And this is getting towards the sort of outskirts of where they're really spreading their source, what's that word?
What?
It was on the tip of my tongue. Like their supplies. Their supplies are spreading thin, and so they're not having the greatest time. And then whoever's in charge of the place at the time's like, what we should do is really lay some groundwork there. We'll build some big cities. We'll make sure that, you know, it can send messages around and kind of be like a second capital. And so he goes on down and starts trying to create this capital, and it just kind of ends up being a whole bunch of waste of resources, and eventually the whole thing kind of collapses. But the soldiers that he's brought with him along the way, and he's got to pay them with something, so he starts sort of paying them with land that they've taken. And so once the empire itself is, you know, as empires do, getting to the point where it's had enough and some other people want to kick it up a bit, it collapses. The people that have been rewarded this land all stay here, and so they are very much using that administrative sort of system. They're pretty much, you know, a little clone of the other guys, but they start taking on a lot more of like the native traditions and opening up to that a bit more, and sort of just being a bit more lenient. And So yeah, that's them in the green. They're doing their thing, and then the red ones are all pretty much prostitute pirates. I'd heard this cool story about in the Wild West about these little tiny towns where there are a whole bunch of dudes. I can't remember what they were doing, maybe prospecting or something. But there were these really high male percentage little towns, right? And so then some clever ladies get the idea of, well, if I go down there and charge them a pretty penny, I could make a fair bit of money. And so they did that, and they ended up accumulating just a ridiculous amount of money, and then ended up doing things like implementing town doctors, from memory. I might be wrong on that, but I really liked the idea of that. So that's pretty much what I've got, is a whole bunch of the natives of, well, I'm not sure if it was the natives. I haven't filled in the backstory too much, but basically a whole bunch of women are like, yeah, we're going to set up a whole bunch of brothels, and they have a whole bunch of issues with that, with the local authorities who are like, no, we're going to try to crack down on this. So they end up having just brothels on boats, because why the hell not? And so they end up becoming these, yeah, cool brothel pirates, and they end up accumulating huge amounts of wealth. And then after the empire collapse and drawback and changes of administration and all that jazz, they start taking these little islands and the resources produced on them. So all the pirates have their own kind of different thing going on. Oh, I think this video is going to be a lot longer than I was expecting. Yeah, so there's 4 different pirate clans. Everything's kind of got like that cliche fantasy wankery name to it, but oh well, nothing's wrong with being a bit tropey. Yeah, so they're all called the Black Sails. They have a sort of unity going on. They work somewhat together, but there's still that internal conflict. So there is the Dagger Sails, the Hawk Sails, the Rose Sails, and the Hornet Sails. And they all kind of specialize in different things and have their own things going on. So like the Hornet Sails are big fans of longbows with flaming arrows. I'm sure there's logistical issues with that, but who gives a damn? And the Hawk Sails are all about using birds, big birds. And they fly around and drop fire on boats, and it's great. So, of this, the towns that are actually going to be in this little place, I've only got 2 going so far. So this is the first one that I was working on, and this is the sheet I was using to work out how I was going to do the colors. I tried textures first, and that was a shit show, so didn't like that. And then so I ended up doing entirely in pencil. And what I've done here is I've just got in a plastic sleeve, and I can write on the plastic sleeve points of interest, and it's not on the actual thing itself. So that's my pretty picture that I worked real hard on. So this is called Rocky Bay. It's all just like segregated into its own little city rings. So you got the dock ring, which is kind of like the little lower area where everyone's not doing too great and everyone's a bit stabby. And then you got the mid ring where it's a bit more prestigious. And you got the sort of like, I don't know, the aristocratic equivalent of whatever the pirates have. So this is a pirate held city. It's held by the Hornet Sails, and it's primarily used for like exporting silver and a couple of different agricultural things, but I forgot what they're supposed to be. So this is actually where the guys are going to end up starting in the game. And the idea is they turn up and the whole place is just covered in rats, and it's not a great time. And then we'll just kind of see what goes from there. So I've got a story going, but I won't say too much now. So there's like We've got like a little tavern going on, and there's like a central water well that's doing some things. We've got some little goat farm places down here. We've got all the crops going on. And anyone curious about the border? I didn't actually design that border myself.
It designed itself.
It flows from the soul. It was a tutorial I found online. It's called a Zentangle pattern, and it was done by a lady called Melinda Barlow. It's called a Stack C pattern. So if you're curious about that, look it up, because if you want to do that sort of pattern, yeah, there's some really cool tutorials out there. Yeah, so these are all of the locations planned out for Rocky Bay, which is what that is called. So yeah, we're up to 29 locations so far. I don't know if that's going to be too many. Like, I don't know if I've bitten off more than I can chew, but we'll burn that bridge when we get to it. And we've got some for these little buildings. There's going to be some little, just some little hovels, some little wooden hovels. So if anyone wants to throw a torch on them, they will catch on fire. And these are the designs for the hovel so far. So you got your little door that comes in. There's a little fire bit over here with a thing on there. We got some boxes, a chest, some drawers, some bed rolls on the ground. And there is the second one for that. So I want to have a couple of different ones, so that way you can go into a few different buildings, and each time it's a new one. So it gives that sort of feeling of expansiveness, even though it's just a couple of pictures. And eventually I'd like to put all of these up online, so if anyone wants to download them, you can. We've got another building going on. This is for one of the L-shaped ones. Not quite sure what I'm going to put in there, but possibilities are endless. We've got a temple. So you come in through the front. We've got some stairs. I wasn't too pedantic about how I drew these, but Oh, sorry, Bob. Do you want to go through? And then we've got the next level up for that one. So I think the idea is this is kind of a brothel temple. So it's for a goddess of fertility. And so they have these kind of crazy, brothel priestesses who just end up with a ludicrous amount of money and also run a pretty hardcore drug supply. Which is going to end up being a pretty big part of the story as the guys are going along. There's just these sort of breakouts of epidemics of people inducing this stuff called harrow. And it just drives people batshit, and it ends up sort of being part of the storyline. And then underneath the temple, so out here at the back of it, you can go through some doors and it goes into this little room, and goes into this whole other section that got walled off, and someone's come through and busted open, and so you can go into these previously sealed rooms that have been sealed for many, many years. And so you go through there, and then it's gonna have things and stuff. I do have this little area that I had started designing. I think it was going to be sort of like a used up silver mine. Like, all the ores have been extracted. There's nothing really left there. So you go there and it's a bit of a ghost place. And so there's empty buildings and whatnot. And we've got a sawmill here. There's going to be a river going through. And they've chopped down all the trees, and so it's just kind of abandoned. And here we have a wonderful cameo of my wife's drawing, Tycoon Hands.
Tycoon hands.
Would you like to explain Tycoon Hands?
No. But I will. So there I was, merrily about my way at Base Warehouse getting more spoons to make outfits from. And they had a Donald Trump mask. And instead of, using his real name or variation of it, his name was Tycoon Man. And so the word tycoon stuck in my head until later that night. And then I think you brought up Tycoon Hands.
Yeah.
Like Hans. And I misheard you as Tycoon Hands. So now Tycoon Hands is so excited that his boots are fucking flying off. And like there's just money coming out of all pores of him. If you look closely into his dead eyes, they're actually green because he's been injecting himself with money. His fingers... I don't know how, like... He's probably going to have to ask, like, Ronald to help him or fucking something, because how can you hold, like, anything with those hands? Like, I don't want the Colonel's fucking face pushed into the back of a fucking syringe. That's all I'm going to say about that. So,
Jesus!
And people say these are hard to work with.
Oh, that was glorious. All right, so also this is the map for Goulburn. So in this, it's flipped. So the suburb of Crestwood will be Goulburn, which I can't remember whose idea that was, but it was fucking genius. And then Goulburn itself is going to be called Crestwood. So this is the first little map that I started doing, and then this is, I'll have to make sure I get this right. This is the big old bad boy. And it's got the points of interest, which I have written, so, names aren't set in rock yet, and I've kind of set up the campaign in a way that I've given myself a bit of time to make sure that I get this down and design this properly. But there's a few Goulburn necessities that I made sure to get in there. So we have the road kitchen.
I get it.
And the filth bird. The Grandstone Merino. Oh, and I made sure that I've put the orphanage in as well, but it's called House of Mercy Orphanage. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that. But there's a lot of ways to play around with that. I've made sure that I've got that crazy huge bookstore near the train station, the one that feels like you're going into another dimension as you walk into it, and then there's just kind of this strange wizard man that sits behind a desk and he's smoking a cigarette, but there's kind of like just this ominous amount of smoke coming out. It's magical. I highly recommend that everyone goes there and buy a ridiculous amount of books. What else have I got? Oh, the Hibernating Merino. I was really happy with that tavern name. Yeah. So up here we're gonna have the prison. So to help you sort of remember where things are, this is the bridge that goes up to, like, up past Goulburn High. So I have actually taken this layout from the actual map of Goulburn and then had to kind of make some minor alterations. So this is the bridge that goes up, so like if you're going up past Goulburn High, up towards,
North Macca's.
Not North Macca's. Up near Chinaman's Lane, like up that way, yeah. So that's...
Racist.
Yeah, it's a strange name for a... Yeah, it's strange. This is the bridge that goes up towards the police academy. And so you'd have like the Crestwood skate park there. And this is the bridge, my favorite bridge, that is near the prison. And I used to walk out there to work at North Goulburn Macca's at like 4 fucking o'clock in the morning. And it was the most beautiful thing I've genuinely ever seen in my life. Because as you're walking apart, like, across this bridge, there's just all of these, like, willows. And it's right near the river, so there's all this mist rolling about, and there's these like bright orange lights of the prison. It's beautiful. It really is beautiful.
The screams of the prisoners really add to the magic.
It adds to the atmosphere. The sirens blaring.
Oh no, a crime!
Yeah, it's fantastic. So that's that bridge that goes up to North Macca's. Oh, now I'm trying to remember if you can actually see it from the bridge. I don't know if my memory's just playing tricks on me. It's been ages.
The Golden Arches.
The Golden Arches.
We all hope to see those in the distance, babe.
Either way, yeah, that bridge is great. So this is kind of like the CBD of Goulburn, and so I've had to just expand it, really change the proportions of it. So we're going to have the park just in there, and the equivalent of the workies just here, so it'll be diagonal instead of... Yeah, it's still diagonal. And the equivalent of the workies, I think I'm just going to call them miners? I'm not sure.
The turkeys.
The turkeys. I've changed the river a whole bunch, so there's going to be river docks there, and these are actually like foldy-uppy bridges, because they're fantastic, and there's magic, so you can do whatever you want. Yeah. So I think that's mostly it. I'm going to put the big merino over here, and it's going to be magical somehow. I just feel like you can't not have a giant magical stone ram. You just got to have one. And I think I'm going to put the orphanage there, and so that can be a whole bunch of little side quests in of itself. And I think that's pretty much everything. Yeah, so I'm going to just try to iron a bit more out, and then maybe get some pictures done of the monsters and fiends that people will have to deal with and put up with in this little world. And yeah, let me know what you want to see and what I could do and what I could change, and yeah, easy done. Have a good one, guys.